And there's something that every human should know, and should know urgently and immediately, and that is that large populations of the thug world, their religions, organized religions, do not have a problem with ritual torture of living beings for energy harvesting, and it is part of the everyday religion. Let me tell you, Ed, don't be fooled by religion. I'm telling you, organized spirituality is religion, and it is immediately one of the biggest abusers of humanity, because it puts blocks on spiritual freedom. Spiritual freedom, Ed, it puts blocks on. That is so serious and such an abuse. Blocks on spiritual freedom. And let me tell you, Ed, these huge populations, and especially the religious ones, they are brought up believing that there are some people that can and should be taken advantage of, exploited, and that God has given them permission to do that. Huge parts, Ed, of populations believe this. Of course, they're not going to tell you that they believe it. Of course, they're not going to do anything that will make you feel that they are dangerous. You might think, Ed, that their crime must not be such a big one if they're walking about, like, how come it's not, how come there's no police, or there are no laws against what they're doing? How come they're just like normal, good people? That's because this form of torture, spiritual torture, emotional energy, and covert ritual torture, the system, the world governments depend on it. And you know, all that crap about separating religion from the state, that is 100% lies and bullshit, because the so-called states are nothing but, factions that follow certain kinds of methods and energy harvesting rituals. The factions joined together to form the government, where rituals could no longer be done by the religions. They formed the governments to take over and pretend to be the opposite of the religion. But it's the same thing. There's no difference. It's the same thing. And I want to tell you, Ed, that humans should know that these people around you who are so-called practicing their wonderful religion, that stuff is the gateway. That stuff is the cover. That stuff, Ed, is the trafficking routes for all kinds of evil. Why I'm telling you this is because I'm a subject of organized covert ritual torture and direct, but now these days it's covert, all my life. And I want to tell you, Ed, that you'd be shocked at which kind of people do such horrific crimes. You'll be very surprised. They are, teachers in schools and colleges. They are doctors and nurses. They are politicians. They're in the news media with such righteous faces discussing crimes against women and children. All of that. They are that sorted. They're doing all of that. And some of them are just like housewives with small babies. And you would think that this kind of person wouldn't raise their hand to cause harm or to cause hurt. Forget to an adult, to a child. With their child in their arms, they will abuse another. That is how they are. And this is because they're all programmed to believe that this is right, what they're doing is right, and there's, that God wants them to do this. This is the thing they have to do. And so they have a lot of righteousness at the same time as doing this kind of crime, even though it's obviously illegal and everything. I just want to say, Ed, that most humans, including myself, will never be able to imagine the extent to which these populations are all right and want and seek and plan trauma for those who have emotional energy. Like, one thing it is, you're programmed. You're generally a good person, and you're programmed into believing that your God wants you to kill all these people, or your God wants you to rape these women because raping them, makes them the property of you now. That's one level of it all. The other level, Ed, is somebody born with the instinct to do all that and just finds the religious excuses to justify it. Maybe doesn't even find the religious excuses, maybe completely uneducated, but just by instinct, plans, plots, and causes pain and enjoys pain being caused to living beings by instinct on their own. This, Ed, is very difficult for humans to believe, to comprehend, incredibly difficult. And I want, Ed, to tell every human being that when you sense cruelty, when you sense somebody being enjoying your pain, when you get the feeling that somebody did it on purpose, though they made it look accidental, and they're saying, sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it, what just happened, forgive me. If you get a feeling, if you feel it's not 100% sincere, be very careful to acknowledge what you're feeling and trust what you're feeling. Because when they do an abuse to you and they say sorry and you forgive them, that becomes a very, very huge psychic energy channel for draining, because they see what you that you forgave them. They don't see it as you being kind, they see it as you submitting, and it can be documented on paper and put on your record in their offices that you submitted to so and so, and they will use that DNA of that entity that was in front of you that you forgave, or you thought they did it accidentally, they didn't mean it. That means they deceived you and you fell for that. You spiritually submitted. They will keep it on record and they will use that DNA again and again and again in your life. You have no idea how far they can go with that. So you must always be really sincere and honest with yourself. If somebody does something bad to you, don't be so quick to forgive them, and in fact don't. If they are right in front of God, God will look after them. If they are wrong in front of God, God will look after them. It's not your business to decide whether they are right or wrong. You have to follow what your own instinct says. And if your instinct says this motherfucker did this on purpose, or this bitch did this on purpose to hurt me, it's your duty, Ed. And more than that, it's important for your survival and your descendants, because they can pull this shit on to your descendants, to your children. If you're a man, and to your wife and your children, and if you're a woman, to your children. They will pull this on for generations. So don't forgive anybody. Let God do whatever. All of that's God's business. It's not yours. If you find somebody, if your instinct says this person did it on purpose, this person is enjoying, if your instinct says it, not even your mind, if you get this slightly gut crawling feeling, if you feel like a little bit, if you feel humiliated somewhere deep down, if you feel like you're being mocked deep down, you're feeling like they're mocking you, you should know it straight off. They definitely did it. And you must forget about, even if you can't, like, no, even like, okay, let's say you hold yourself back from forgiving, but definitely don't pass that off. Put it as something you're still looking at, but don't write it off, because that can become a psychic channel.